significant shifts in how we balance our budget, the services that the people of Chicago have begun to rely upon, they would certainly be in jeopardy.
As he begins the process of balancing the 2026 budget by the end of the year, Mayor Johnson says the city is $1.15 billion in the hole. The increased forecast includes closing this year's budget $146 million short and possibly having to absorb a controversial pension payment the Chicago Board of Education voted not to include in the school district's budget.
Our economy does remain resilient, but fiscal discipline is certainly required in this moment.
But the mayor's critics say fiscal discipline was required the moment Johnson took office.
I think the way we got here was the Johnson administration just started piling on more and more expenditures over and over and over again every month.
Former City Council Finance Committee Chairman Scott Waguespack says the Johnson administration has spent hundreds of millions of dollars on contracts without City Council approval during the migrant crisis. He also says the mayor refused to right-size government after COVID and expanded staffing at City Hall.
We really don't have enough in the revenue side of things to pay for the things that he wants. You have to cut. And if you don't cut, your only option is to borrow more or to hit the property tax hike.
Besides a grocery tax, Johnson did not offer any specifics on how he plans to close the deficit. He has consistently called for the ultra-rich and large corporations to pay more, but many of the mayor's progressive revenue ideas will take action from Springfield. When asked, the mayor would not commit to layoffs or a property tax hike.
There are ways in which we can create efficiencies without necessarily laying people off, but again, it's too early to be able to make that determination.
The mayor is expected to present his budget recommendations mid-October. It will then be followed by departmental hearings. The hope is to have the full city council vote on a budget in November.
Manager Ken Griffin announced last week he was moving his company's headquarters from Chicago to Miami.
This is the third major company to leave the state, joining Boeing and Caterpillar. Talk about the effects of the big companies leaving Illinois. Is CEO and founder of LaSalle Network, Tom Gimbel. Tom, thanks for being with us.
Good to be with you. I'm just curious if I'm going to get to be in the wedding party, Rob.
Oh, you never know, Tom. I'll get your contact info after this. Looking for people. Hey, so tell us, when we hear about all these big names leaving, it seems like an exodus. But in the big scheme of things, what does it mean for Chicago?
Yeah, it's a lot of front page headlines. However, from a real aspect of jobs, it doesn't affect us too much. It's more of a signal of, so let's break it down. So Boeing's going to Virginia. Their biggest client is the United States government. So they're actually going closer to where their bosses are, so to speak. And that makes sense. And I think a lot of people were wondering why that didn't happen originally. Then you look at Caterpillar, and that's a real knock. However, most of their jobs, as we know in Illinois, are in Peoria, and they always have been. It was a corporate office relocation to Deerfield. And so it's leaving Illinois, and that's what we should really take notice of, because they're going to Texas for those financial and tax reasons. And then with Ken Griffin, there's going to be jobs left in Chicago, but he's moving to Florida and following that pandemic that blew Miami up in a good way, and he's taking advantage of that where people want to be. And he's sitting here as the only financial services company and saying, we are not going to pay these taxes. We're going to go to Florida where people want to live. And that's a huge knock on Illinois and J.B. Pritzker.
So why would Kellogg come here?
Well, Kellogg's already here, and I think that's one of the things that's been lost, is that they have a facility out in the suburbs, I believe in Elmhurst. They bought a company and have a facility here in Chicago, so they already have it, and it's a much smaller company. Chicago's a great city. Let's not forget that at all. We've got great universities. We've got great the suburban area. What we're having a real problem is three areas. Number one, taxes. Number two is safety and the violence problem. And number three is the Chicago public school systems. But every major city has public school system problems. We just need to deal with it more aggressively. The violence is the major issue. And then you have the taxes, which if there wasn't a violence problem, taxes wouldn't be the thing that everyone would be focusing on.
What about workers returning to downtown Chicago? What are the numbers on that? Has it gotten better?
Yeah, it's gotten better. What we're looking at is the full entree into the hybrid work environment. So what our clients are telling us, what we're seeing is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in the office is what it's going to be. As the unemployment rate rises and it shifts from an employee-driven market to an employer-driven market, we'll probably get more Monday through Thursday people coming in the office. My feeling is Friday will be what casual Friday was a decade ago. Will be remote Friday, and people won't be going into the office really.
All right, Tom, thanks.
Rising before the pandemic, but climbed much faster once COVID-19 struck. It's now more than 26% in Chicago's Loop and also on the rise in the Michigan Avenue corridor. The I-Team wanted to know what's being done to fill those empty storefronts. From Michigan Avenue,
Many stores are dark.
to the Loop, Gold Coast, and River North, the I-Team found dozens and dozens of these signs for lease and space available.
A lot of the shops seem to be closed down. There's a lot of empty places.
Places like this now empty 60,000 square foot Uniqlo and the vacant Macy's and Water Tower place. We also talked to shoppers in front of the now empty large retail spaces of a former Gap and a Forever 21.
I think maybe another store will come up and see the potential in this business. Another store come and take it over.
And despite plenty of potential shoppers here, one real estate research group says the Mag Mile has more than a 19% vacancy rate. That's up from about 11% in 2019.
Some of that was happening before the pandemic, but of course the pandemic amplified that.
The president and CEO of the Chicagoland Chamber of Commerce, Jack Lavin, showed me the pandemic challenges on Michigan Avenue, filling large empty retail spaces, some which were tailor-made for the stores now left behind.
The Mag Mile, Michigan Avenue, is the economic engine of the city of Chicago. Almost 20% of the jobs are in the Mag Mile district, jobs in the city of Chicago. It's the largest neighborhood in the city of Chicago.
There are similar vacancy trends in surrounding downtown neighborhoods. The Loop now has a 26% vacancy rate. That's also up from a historic low, less than 10% in 2015. Here's another example, an empty business below Willis Tower. What would go here?
Well, there's a myriad of opportunities for here.
Leasing agent Todd Siegel is facing the hurdles of filling many of these empty spaces for landlords in need. There's also an additional challenge, filling ground floor storefronts in several new high-rises which were built during the pandemic.
It's challenging, and not only are we just looking for bodies and users to take that space, but we're challenging the business plans behind those retailers, making sure that what we're introducing into this ecosystem is something that not only is going to be sustainable today, but grow as consumer habits and patterns change.
Siegel and Lavin say they want to attract more experience-type concepts, such as the world's largest Starbucks Reserve Roastery on Michigan Avenue. Ideas include integrating food, bars, or product demonstrations into retail, giving customers a reason to come into the store rather than shopping online.
Whether it's experiential retail, more entertainment or family entertainment.
City of Chicago leaders say they too have a plan rolling out its Central City Recovery Roadmap to revitalize the greater downtown area. Officials with the city's Business Affairs and Consumer Protection Department also saying an expedited restaurant licensing program will help fill some empty spaces.
The consumer sees a lot of empty storefronts, but the reality is behind the scenes, retailers are trying to reimagine what their storefront looks like.
Changing what a storefront looks like could also include breaking large spaces up into smaller retail shops.
Increase in people experiencing homelessness in Chicago. According to the city, a one-night snapshot shows the number of unhoused people has tripled year over year. The city's annual count explains how migrants have played a big role in that growing number.
I think it's huge, insanely huge.
Morgan McCluckey is hands-on, combating the growing issue of homelessness and helping the people impacted face-to-face. Today, she was handing out meals underneath the Dan Ryan Expressway on Canalport Avenue.
We build genuine relationships and connections with people and help people who have fallen through the cracks of the larger system.
Short-term help, she hopes, guides people to long-term solutions. It's an uphill battle. A snapshot of homelessness in Chicago released by the city shows nearly 19,000 people experienced homelessness on a single night in January, roughly 3 times the number reported in that same analysis in 2023, due in large part to the influx of migrants.
Since August of 2022, we have welcomed more than 43,000 asylum seekers who have crossed the southwest border and traveled to Chicago.
Maura McCauley with the Chicago Department of Family and Support Services says the city increased shelter capacity by about 5 times over the same time period.
We weren't surprised to see that we had almost 14,000 asylum seekers in shelters. So, this year's count really reflects the need for continued housing and services.
Even among non-asylum seekers, the numbers reflect a 25% increase in people experiencing homelessness year over year. The city attributing the increase among that segment of the population to pandemic-era support expiring and housing becoming less affordable.
We need the city to take greater accountability. We need affordable housing.
You see the Mayor Brandon Johnson. You underestimate us. You underestimate the black people, and you underestimate Chicago Red. We're the thorn in your side, and we're going to be the thorn on everybody else in this council member side too. If you don't stop what you're doing, we're going to take matters in our own hand, and we're going to stop it. You know that Trump had pulled 45% of the voter in the state of Illinois, 37 in the city of Chicago. That's the statistic. That means that Illinois is turning purple. We're going to turn red. Y'all can bird dog me all y'all want, but if it's relationship over duty, then y'all don't serve the blue. And you can smirk all you want.
Mr. Sims, direct your attention towards me, please.
You're a criminal. Why do I got to address you? The feds need to address you. DOJ need to address you, and hopefully Donald Trump will address you. Because you're going to protect the undocumented. While you're going to allow for the citizens in Chicago to suffer under your, 33%? Well, see, Joe Lopez cooked that 3% up a long time ago. Y'all called it a circuit breaker. Y'all been talked about it. Remember, before you came in here and gave that jovial speech, you need to be inspected. You wearing that creep over there.
Acting like, you just going to bully everybody. You got people, officers whose families don't even want you to come to the funeral. You're just like a schoolyard bully. That at some point, and you might not know nothing about it because you grew up in Elgin, but those of us who grew up on the south side and west side of Chicago, we all know at some point that bully gets cornered in the alley. And everybody come at him. And he ain't gonna have nobody to help him. That's you. That's you. Keep thinking you ain't gonna abide by what the President of the United States said. Everybody know better than that. I see you, Anna Valencia, in your red. You know what it is. This is the second time you showed up in City Council in red. You know what it is? Yeah. So you and the rest of them that know what time it is, y'all come on. You leave that loser where he is. He's a loser. He's a loser. No, me and Zoe, we ain't doing nothing for nobody except for ourselves. We got you, loser.
14% rating is what you appear to have, Brandon Johnson, across the United States, or how they see you. But 14% rating. Now, I'm going to talk about all those known donations of $11.5 million that came from places like the CTU, the SEIU, the American Federation of Teachers, Illinois Federation of Teachers, and then someone got the nerve to get on there and talk about cutting their pensions. What about our real estate? Because, see, we paid for these properties for a purpose and not for you to go touching it with $300 million that you want to siphon out of the citizens' pockets. Get rid of the illegals, and that'll take
for you. Charlie Wojciechowski's been looking at all the options for us. Charlie?
Well, the mayor's office says they are looking for progressive revenue sources, and while those sources have yet to be identified, some groups are already expressing concern.
We have reached a point now where there's no return.
A frank admission from Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson. A looming budget crisis could be even worse than expected without new taxes or cuts to city services.
The systems that people rely upon, education, healthcare, housing, our transportation, they are woefully underfunded, and everyone knows that.
Right now, Chicago is facing a $1.1 billion budget gap for 2026. The financial burden could be even greater because of a pension bill signed by Governor J.B. Pritzker, which has increased retirement benefits for police and firefighters. That added over $11 billion to the city's long-term pension liability.
Yes, I'm going to put forth a package that people can assess and debate.
So what could be in such a package? Johnson has already ruled out a property tax increase, which many alders had promised to vote against. Other possibilities include a corporate payroll expense tax, a head tax, and even a tax on cars coming into the downtown area, patterned after New York's congestion tax.
I have not made a formal presentation yet, but I can assure you one thing, though. I'm committed to making sure that the ultra-rich and those with means put more skin in the game. That is the pathway forward.
Already, the Chicagoland Chamber of Commerce has called some administration ideas a step backwards for economic growth.
These things are bad for business. They're bad for jobs. They're a direct disincentive for employers to hire people in Chicago.
Another challenge. Johnson says the Chicago public schools are owed more than $1 billion in funding from the state of Illinois.
It's $1.6 billion. These aren't my numbers. These are the state's numbers. Who's hurting ultimately here?
Johnson says whatever is in the package he intends to present to the city council will be pro-business, pro-growth, and pro-worker. He is expected to make his budget address in October, but in previous years, he has pushed that back a little bit.
Okay, so we're in still the discussion phase, the ideas phase. When does Chicago have to have a budget and have it done?
The absolute deadline is December. That's when they start worrying about the bond ratings and all of that kind of thing. So right now there's a lot of flexibility here. Once he makes that address, there'll of course be city council debate. There'll have to be an approval process, and then we start talking about an approved budget for 2026.
And what about